Hello, my name is Silke Reimer and I work as a music therapist in Berlin, Germany. I would like to introduce you to the AQR, the Assessment of the Quality of Relationship. The AQR is an observation tool to assess the quality of relationship between the music therapist and children with pervasive developmental disorder, especially autism spectrum disorder. What does quality of relationship mean? Ainsworth defines the term sensitivity as a capacity to perceive the child's signals, to interpret this perception correctly, and to react promptly and appropriately to it. The quality of relationship depends on the level of mutual sensitivity. This led to the idea of developing an assessment tool not only to assess autistic children, but also the therapist and his or her interventions. The aim was to see whether the music therapy interventions were appropriate to the child's level of development and needs. At first, I'd like to tell you about the history of the AQR. Since 1984, Karin Schumacher, a music therapist in Berlin, has been working with children on the autistic spectrum. These children were suffering from an impairment in social, interactive, and communicative abilities. So Schumacher considered autism as a pervasive disorder of socio-emotional development. She referred to Leo Kanner, who described early infantile autism as autistic disturbance of affective contact. In 1990, her collaboration with the developmental psychologist Claudine Calvé began. They filmed and analyzed Karin Schumacher's work with children with autism spectrum disorder and started to look at the children from a developmental psychology point of view. In 2008, I started my collaboration with Karin Schumacher and Claudine Calvé. I had studied the AQR during my time at the University of the Arts Berlin from 1997 to 1999 and worked since then on the further development of the AQR. I wrote my PhD on the subject of affect regulation and adapted the AQR scales for music therapy for people with severe multiple disabilities. Findings from developmental psychology can help to adequately assess a person's level of development and needs. Questions that are helpful for a developmental psychology-oriented therapy are: which developmental stages are prerequisites for the ability for interpersonal relationships? What are the difficulties and impairments in children with autism, and what do they miss out on in the first years of life? How can differences in development and behavior be observed and assessed? Which music therapy interventions reach the child and treat the disturbance of affective contact? The developmental psychology basis of the AQR is the self-concept of the infant researcher Daniel Stern. Stern describes the development of the ability for interpersonal relationships. A meaningful processing of stimuli and affect regulation are the prerequisites for developing a so-called core self. At about 7 months, the child becomes aware that his or her experiences, thoughts, and emotions may be distinct from those of other people. It also experiences that interests, attention, and even emotions can be shared. This is the beginning of intersubjectivity. Stern also describes the support by caregivers that attune adequately to the infant. The description of the caregiver's behavior gives hints for music therapy interventions. The first aim of the AQR was to show evidence of the effectivity of music therapy interventions. Therefore, Schumacher and Calvé developed a scale to describe the therapist and his or her interventions, called TQR. They also described characteristic behaviors of autistic children. They found similarities between their descriptions of the behavior of autistic children and Stern's discussion of early pre-verbal stages of development. Schumacher and Calvé described 7 stages, the so-called modi 0 to 6, that refer to Daniel Stern's model of development, as you can see on this slide. For each of these 7 modi, characteristics were formulated that describe the behaviors of autistic children. Finally, these behaviors were assigned to 3 scales, depending on the child's expression. The PEQR scale to describe the physical-emotional quality of relationship, the VQR scale to describe the vocal quality of relationship, and the IQR scale, which describes the instrumental quality of relationship. In 2005, inter-rater reliability was assessed to support psychometric soundness of the AQR. The inter-rater reliability is the agreement among independent observers who assess the same behaviors. 84 music therapists from Germany, Austria, and Sweden were trained in analyzing videos with the AQR scales. They analyzed samples of videos of every modus of the 4 scales. The results for the 4 scales of the AQR showed values between 0.75 and 0.83, which indicates a good inter-rater reliability. To promote inter-rater agreement, the descriptions of the AQR scales have been revised based on the results. The AQR was published in 2011 in German and 2019 in an English translation. Translation into further languages are in preparation. In previous editions, the book includes a DVD that contains film examples of all the AQR scales. For other publications, such as the German language edition from 2023, the films can be assessed using a QR code. The AQR can be used to assess entire sessions and therapy courses. It is prevalently used to analyze special moments of therapy. The question of the relevance of a scene depends on the question and the motive that lead a music therapist to analyze a specific scene. Film sequences with a length of 1 to 3 minutes are usually sufficient to determine the quality of the relationship at that moment. I would like to show you an example of an assessment and the graphic representation. The therapist offers an autistic boy drumsticks to play the drum. This is assessed with a TQR scale, mode 3. The boy reaches for a stick, but does not play. He rather touches the stick with his mouth. This is assessed with the IQR scale for the instrumental expression, and this is mode 1. Also, when the therapist starts playing the drum, he does not start playing. The need to feel something with the mouth seems to be the primary need. The therapist recognizes from the child's behavior that the sensory experience is prevalent. He therefore offers the drum to feel the vibrations, as this corresponds to the child's level of development. This assessment provides a basic mode for both the child and the therapist, as you can see here, mode 1. If these modes are at the same level, the interventions match the child's level of development and needs, and are therefore development promoting. If there's a difference between the modes, it is a mismatch and contact is made more difficult or impossible at that moment. In this way, the AQR can answer the question whether the therapist's intervention is appropriate to the child's state of development. If he or she intervenes in an appropriate way, shared moments can arise. Daniel Stern assumes that these shared moments encourage the child's development. The application of the AQR has been taught in trainings in Berlin, Munich, Vienna, and Zurich since 2005. In certification courses, the developmental basis and the scales of the AQR are taught by Karin Schumacher, Silke Reimer, and Claudia König. The training courses consist of 5 weekends with a total of 90 lessons. On each weekend, one of the scales is the topic, combined with developmental background. On the 5th weekend, the course concludes with an exam. Each participant analyzes a video example using the AQR and presents it to the group. The graduates meet once a year to ensure quality in the application of the assessment and to develop and adjust the scales to various fields of indication. Graduates of the AQR certification courses use the AQR in their music therapy fields of work. It becomes clear that individual aspects of the scales need to be adjusted and revised depending on the diagnosis. However, it also shows that the AQR is helpful beyond the area of autism. If you're interested in further information, please contact Silke Reimer. There's more information available in German on the homepage of the University of the Arts Berlin. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.